Hey everyone, I'm Project PowerPoint and welcome to the PowerPoint OS Masterclass. Now, I've tried to record this tutorial about 5 times already, and it's kind of getting a bit late. I've already delayed it a day, so I'm going to split this into parts. I hope you don't mind about that, but I won't make the parts too small, and it's not just a way of forgetting about it, because I will follow up with this, by the way, but still. First of all, we're going to be looking at creating a Windows system in the PowerPoint OS Masterclass, and this one we're going to just create from scratch. We're going to create an OS called Masterclass OS and build upon it through each different episode. So first of all, I'm just going to do a general design, and this will be a little time lapse, so hopefully you'll enjoy. So we have pretty much the design, master OS, we have the login. This is a file system, so whatever will be stored in the OS will be stored here in shapes. We're using shapes just because it's easier for the process of tutorial, but you can also use actual files, and in a future video we'll cover that. Slide 6 will contain all the apps, slide 7 will be the desktop, and slide 8 is just a place for you to work with. So you don't want to do, let's say you've got a lot of apps on here, if you want to move one in isolation and work on it there, but it won't be in the final thing. So let's actually do something. Right, so on this side we're going to actually create a taskbar, so we're going to duplicate this, and because is it an image? No, it's a rectangle, so we can actually set it to this fill. Now we're going to set that, we're going to call it taskbar for TB, TB for taskbar, and we're going to probably create a little start icon. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this to the same on each side for 5. And I'm going to probably have just a cross between Lendos and Gecko OS, just for the sake of it. There we go. Because I don't really have that much time to do this. So I'm going to set that like that, make that smaller, and then make this a random size. I don't know, like that. Yeah, that looks really ugly, but I don't care. Right, then we're going to go to Merge Shapes Union, and we're going to position this roughly at the start of the taskbar. So that is our taskbar button. We're going to name it as such, but you don't have to name it unless you want to change the properties of it when you click on it versus when you don't. So we're going to call this Start Menu Button, by the way. It's a good idea just to name things just in case. Now, when we add our items, we want the taskbar, the items not to start at the absolute start of the taskbar and go on top of the start menu items. So we're going to create a new shape as a reference. This is going to be called taskbar length. So taskbar len. And yeah, now we need to create the items on the taskbar. So we're going to create another one of these, and we're going to set position to this, and I'm going to create one for a window that is selected and one for window that's unselected. Now we're going to go into the format of, well, that's right there. So I'm just going to, this is just a design choice, you don't have to implement this at all, this is completely up to you. So I'm going to set the that would be my active one, and then this would be my inactive one. I'll set that to that, that to that, that to that, there. Actually, it might set the transparency a bit higher. So now we need to name these as such and get them off the slide because we don't want them to be visible. So we're going to go into, first of all, I want to get rid of that. There we go. So we're going to call this Taskbar item, TBI, and then we're going to call this TBI plus for a selected taskbar item. So now that you've done that, we need to go back to our files, and we're going to, I've already created a file system/windows.sys. So that will create a file where all the windows are stored. So I'm going to create, using separated by semicolons, a list of different windows just for a test. So I'm going to call this test, hello, lol, okay, meme, mem, I don't know. And then I'm going to duplicate this, and I'm going to create another one called cell window.sys. Now, you can have your own memory addresses so long as you remember what they are, and we're going to have the selected window to be lol. Now, it's case sensitive, by the way, so just to make sure. Now, I have a slide object for slide 5 and a slide object for slide 7, so I'm pretty much set. If you haven't, then it's a good idea to create those objects by inserting an ActiveX control, double click on it, and it will open up that slide and tell you which one it is. First of all, we're going to actually have the start menu. So let's make a start menu. We're just going to go like this. And then we're going to resize it to about like that. I might as well have it a little bit transparent, like that. And I'm going to have an item on it with more transparency. And call this Notepad, maybe. Again, this is up to you. Also, before we duplicate it, it's a good idea to assign it a macro rather than having to constantly go around doing it again. So we're going to go sub launch app, maybe lunch app, launch app. There we go, and we're going to leave it blank. We can work on that later. So insert action launch app. There we go. Duplicate that several times. The second one will probably be clock. We need one that's non-notepad, so notes, or even better, sticky notes. And then we'll create the last one. It'll probably be a game like Pong or something like that. So I'm going to group these into a single start menu, and I'm going to call this SM for start menu. So there we go, SM. Also, I did a silly idea of calling these TB length as well, which means PowerPoint might get confused to which one is which. So I'm just adding random stuff to it so it doesn't think it's this one. Right, so sorry about that. Then I'm going to go into animations. I might have a little fancy animation over here. Always set it to with previous if you're going to have an animation. I'm probably going to set it 0.2 length and have a good smooth end. And then I'm going to create the feature to toggle the start menu. So we want to do two things. We want to bring it to the front, and we want to make it visible or not visible. So we're going to call a sub, what should we call it? Start menu open, or start menu, just like that. Now we're going to check if it's visible or not. So if shapes sm dot visible, then else end if. That's the same as saying dot visible equals true. So if it is visible, then we want to get rid of it. So we're going to make it invisible by doing this. Because this is a property that you can set as well, we're going to set it to false. And else, we're going to first of all bring to the front. And then we're going to set it to visible. So then if we add that to this, insert action and start menu, you will see, this from my previous attempt, I actually created another start menu. That's funny. This is the invisible one over here. Get rid of that. So where was I? Yeah, so you can open and close the start menu like that. Sorry, that was really strange. Right, now I'm going to have these items. We want to create a taskbar refresh system. Now usually you would say, well hang on, you want to preserve all the items on the taskbar, so when you select a window you don't want to have to rebuild the whole thing each time. But actually it really doesn't make a difference, and it has it's shorter code, because the code speed is ludicrously fast, so there's no point in having to do all the preserving stuff. So I'm going to call it RBTB for build taskbar, or build, yeah, it's probably more wise to call it build taskbar. Right, first of all we need to actually import all the different items. So first of all we're going to import both of those, system.cellwindow. Oh, what have I called that? Cellwindow.sys and system.windows.sys. So I'm going to copy the longest one. So we're going to dim window cell window as string. So these are all text. Actually, I'm just going to dim cell window string and dim windows as an array of strings using the brackets keyword. Now this is a dynamic array, so we can set it to the splitting of slide 5.shapes that text frame text range text. So now that we've imported all the items there, we're going to do the same thing but with cell window. So cell window, and we're going to set that to the first one to windows.sys, and we're going to split it as well. So in front of that we're going to do split. We're going to split it on the delimiter, which is a semicolon. And now we have an array of windows and a selected window we can use later. Now we're going to create a loop and loop through them. So we're going to go back to this slide so we can remember what we called everything, and we're going to go back here. So we're going to go for I equals 0 to the upper bound of windows, and next I, or just next. So we're going to cycle through them. First of all, we need an offset of the position of this. So first of all, we're going to duplicate taskbar item. So we're going to go, what should we say, taskbar shapes tbi dot duplicate. So we're going to hold that into a variable with, or an object rather, end with, and we're going to rename it to Windows I, and we're also going to say that it's a taskbar item, tbi colon, and concatenate it with Windows I. So what that'll do is we're going to duplicate this, and then we're going to set it to the name of, we're going to have it to tbi and which it belongs to, which is like hello. For example, it belongs to the window hello. So next we want to position it somewhere, so we need an offset. Our offset is going to be the position of tblen. So dot left equals shapes tblen dot left, and then to which we want to add the iterations that we've done so far. So it would be plus dot width, and then we're going to add how much spacing we want between each one. We're going to have about probably 4 pixels, maybe 3 pixels, or 2 pixels. I'm going to go 3, and then we're going to times that by I, and there we go. So if we do that, then it will loop through each of them and create them in a line. But also we have a bit of a problem, they're all down here, so we want to set them up here. So what we're going to do is we're going to set dot top equals shapes, we'll actually just copy this, dot top, and the compiler's screaming at me. Right, there we go. So if we put that there we go. Now we also want to check if it's a selected window, so we're going to have an if statement. If if its name equals cell window, then else end, or pretty much end if. We don't need an else here. We're going to pick up and apply the TBI plus. So shapes TBI plus dot pick up and cell dot apply. No, not cell. What am I saying? Saying dot apply. There we go. Now, if I rendered that, then it didn't want to do it. So if its name is equal to selected window. Not sure why that is. So if we go through it, so what's its name? Test. That's not. What about here? Hello. That's not. Lol. That is. So there's a problem with that. What have I done there? Ah, maybe I have a space after it. That's why. I think. So we'll get rid of that. And also, we've added TBI to the name as well, which means I can't just test for it like that. So equals TBI colon and cell window. So if we run that, there we go. That's better. And the last thing we want to do is set the text frame text. Not text frame dot text range dot text to be Windows I to the current window. And there we go. So if we render that, there we go. We have all our different windows. But we still have a bit of a problem, because if we do this like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times, then we have so many different taskbar items. So we need to delete all of them. So what we're going to do is pass an optional parameter, optional delete as, let's say, string. So then we're going to on error resume next to ignore the error. Of course, this is quite a dangerous thing to do, so if you want to disable the part of the code that causes the error if you're debugging, otherwise you're just going to run into the same error multiple times. First of all, we're going to delete the original, so shapes that and Windows I dot delete, and then we're going to say this is a offending code, but if there is no such thing as the delete, then it will just carry on. So, and delete dot delete. So pretty much if we keep doing that, oh, but then we have to pass a parameter, so we have to create a test sub. So sub test, we're going to call build tb with nothing there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and we still end up with the same amount. And if we add another one there, we want to delete that as well, we can pass the optional parameter to get rid of here. So we go into here and here, run that, and it gets rid of here. Moving on. Well, that's all well and dandy, but what if we need apps? Well, we do need apps. So first of all, we're going to actually create an app. First of all, you need the base components. Now, this can be quite confusing, so you might want to pay a little more extra attention the first time. We first of all need a background. Now, we're going to call this test/back. Now, the reason I'm doing this slash stuff is because that shows that it's a member of test. Also, actually, we're going to put test/f/back, F for false, just to tell the code that this does not belong to a group. You'll see what I mean in a minute. Then we're going to duplicate that and create a header. So this will be the window header, and we're going to call, oh, I deleted the wrong one. Whoops. So I'm going to delete that one and duplicate this one, and this will be the header. I'm just going to put head. like that, instead of header, because it's easier to say. We're going to call this sticky note, because this is our first app, and sticky note is easiest to make. Now that we have our two main components, we're going to create an invisible quotes group. This is an actual group. This is just a reference group for the resizing code. So we're going to set this to 100% transparency, and these will be the window buttons at the bottom, like for example the dialog buttons, OK, yes, etc. But it's just going to be new. This button we're going to have here creates a new note. Probably have shape presets to save time, although this looks about right. So we're going to use that. Now we're going to name this according to the group. So first of all, we need to name the group. Test/$integrated or an ampersand even, that makes more sense to indicate that it's a group. And we're going to call the group maybe I don't know, D buttons for dialog buttons. And then we're going to create another group called control box, which will do all the window controls, basically, like resize, maximize, minimize. We're going to have it at the side just to be different from Windows. And we're going to call this CTRL box for control box, like that. Now we want to know that this is pinned to one of these, so we're going to hit test/ and then it's going to be pinned to D buttons, and we're just going to call it button. And the same goes for the window controls. Let's actually create them first. If we put them in the side, make that invisible. Set these to this size, maybe. Let's set it to 1 centimeters each side and make it a bit smaller. So this would be the close button. I'm going to have that like that. Whoa. And then this one is going to be amber, and this one is going to be green. Then we're going to make them a bit smaller, a bit like Mac OS. And then these are all going to be control box. So this shouldn't be that. Call this control box, and this one control box, to show that they're pinned to control box. And this one is minimize, and this one is maximize, and this one is close. Min, max, and close. And that's pretty much it. Now we just need to group it under a single name, but before we do that, there's one more thing I forgot to do, which is the minimum resize. Now, when we're resizing the app, we don't want it to get so small that it gets completely distorted. So we're going to set a realistic maximum size for this, and that's usually about so if this size is that wide, it has to be at least that much wide. So I'm probably going to have it about this size, and I'm going to call this test/f/min_res for minimum resize. Then we're going to group these and call it test, because that's the name of the window. I'm going to capitalize that, and there we go. Now we want a system that when you click on something in the start menu should actually open our selected app. So we're going to go to that launch app thing, and pretty much we're going to, first of all, we're going to pass the parameter of the shape. So cell as shape. Cell standing for selector, that's just the way I do it, you can use anything else. So what passing the parameter of shape will do is PowerPoint, when you click on the shape, you can also ask VBA which shape it is, and it will return the shape, which is very, very useful. So all we need to know is what the shape contains. So we're going to say, and we also want to copy and paste this thing over. Now also we want to give it a different name from other variants of this. So we have to create a new file called wincount. So wincount.sys. Now, whoops. At the moment, we'll set that just to 1. In fact, we'll set that to 0 so far. I'm going to have nothing in there. Also, if you have nothing in your windows, you also want on error resume. Oh, it's already there. Okay, forget about that. So, this is stored in slide 6. I don't have an object for that, so I'm going to insert this, double click on it, and it creates slide 6, luckily. Usually VBA messes all that up, but it actually did it pretty well there. So, where was I? Back to slide 7. So, slide 6.shapes, and I'm going to pass cell.textFrame.textRange.text.copy. Now with with shapes.count dot actually not yet, because we need to paste it on the slide. Shapes.paste paste. There we go. So once we've pasted it on the slide, we want to change a few of its properties. So we're going to set it to .name equals, I'm going to say slide 5 dot shapes there, dot text frame dot text range dot text, and what it's already called. So we're just appending the number to that. Now it is at 0, isn't it? No, it's not. So we're going to set it to 0. We're going to have a window called sticky note. In fact, we're not. And we're going to set that to nothing as well. And then, once we've launched the app, that's pretty much it. We need to create another. Obviously, we need to update these. So we're going to create another one of these, and system./win_count. So it will equal it. Oops, I didn't copy all that. Itself and 1. And we'll copy the whole thing this time. Silly project. Right. Also want to update Windows. So Windows is itself and semicolon and the currently added window, which would be, in fact, we might put this inside the with clause so that we don't have to keep referencing it. In fact, we want to do that before. So we're going to set the win count afterwards. And we're going to set this before we update the name, because we need the name. And .name. Actually, we don't, because we want them to be different. So let's undo that. There we go, and .name, and we'll increment that counter, and we also want to, when the taskbar item is created, we'll get rid of the character. So we're going to replace in .name, we're going to find, we're going to continue this statement onto the next line, find the count, and replace it with nothing to combat that issue. Replace it with nothing. So, and then we go, or we can add the count afterwards, but in a more user-friendly way. So we're going to add maybe this. Now the reason we're doing this may seem to make absolutely no sense why we're doing this. It's because if we just added the name, then it would literally be like 1 sticky note, blah blah blah, 2 sticky notes, instead of being sticky note open brackets 1 or close brackets. So it's just a way of making it look more proper to the eye. And then we also want an error zoom next if something happens, but not yet. We need to actually test that it works. And then we're going to rebuild the taskbar, which is simply, we just need to copy this. And that's pretty much it. We don't need to pass a parameter, an argument, sorry, because it doesn't. We're not deleting anything. So now we can test it. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to actually launch an app. Now it's called Sticky Notes, but of course this isn't. It's just called Test. So I'm going to go over and actually create just one called Test, just temporarily, and we'll open Test. There we are, and that adds it to the taskbar. And for some reason, it's I added the semicolon before, so that's a bit of an issue. I should probably have added it after. 1 second. Where is it? There it is. So if we do that again, well, now we have the problem that it creates one that doesn't exist. God, the world's a strange place. Cell window.sys, we've already created one. So inevitably it's going to create a blank one. We can deal with that later, don't worry. But the whole point is, when we insert this, it will bring up this window. Just realise that's very big for a sticky note. Lastly today we're going to look at the window dragging loop. That's the last thing in this tutorial before we'll move on to the next thing. Now just one thing to say, the next part in this tutorial won't be for not too long, because I'm going to be doing the File Explorer tutorial and starting that, but that doesn't mean I've abandoned this project. It will just mean I'll come back to it later, so don't be too worried if I don't upload this in a while. So back to this. Right, now actually what we're going to do is we're going to create an invisible shape. First of all, get rid of all this stuff on the taskbar, we don't need that. Secondly, we're going to insert a blank shape that will cancel the dragging of the window. So we're going to set its transparency to nothing, and we're going to name it cancel. So next we want to drag our windows. We need to create a few API calls. So we need to insert a module, go press F4 to rename it. I'm going to call this APIs. Now we need to check if our system architecture, or rather which version of VBA we're using. We're going to go if VBA 7 then else end if. So if we are in VBA 7, we'll use PTR safe and long PTR. If we're not, we're just going to use a standard API call. First of all, we're going to declare function get cursor position, and we're gonna, that's from the library user 32. We're gonna pass it IL point as we're gonna create a type called mouse. Hang on, we need to make that smaller. As mouse, as, and we're gonna actually we'll call this mouse pos, and then we're gonna as long. We're gonna do the same thing for get system metrics. Declare function get system metrics library user 32, and then we're gonna call this il info as long as long. We go back here, but before we do that we need to first of all put this here, and instead of long we're going to have PTR, and instead of declare function it's going to be PTR safe function. That will mean it can work in Office 2007 and 64-bit versions of Windows. Now we're going to create a type called mouse position. So we're going to create type mouse position. It's similar to the struct in VB. So if you do VB, then you might know that. And type, and we need left as long and top as long. So next we need to get the cursor position. Now this can be quite difficult because it depends on your screen size. PowerPoint measures a 16:9 side by the width was 960 and the height is 540. Your screen is different, right? I have a 1080p screen, but what if your screen is not 1080p? You can't just divide it by 2 because when it converts it there'll be an offset. So you have to actually do a bit of maths. We're going to convert it into what we need to divide. So we're going to create a function that gets the mouse position. So instead we'll insert another module, and we're going to call this cursor. Now we're going to create a property. We're going to call this property get because we don't need to set it, and we're going to call this left. Then we need to return the right amount. So left would be, first of all, we need to declare an instance of that mouse position. So we're going to dim mouse or cursor. Actually, we're going to call this mouse as mouse position. Then get cursor position mouse. Then we're going to also get the system metrics with screen length. So if, in fact, no, not if, we're going to say left equals mouse dot left divided by get system metrics and left is 0. So we'll just test what that returns. So we're going to get sub lol, alright, and we're going to get left. I'm going to message box that and see what we get. Division by 0. Oh dear. What happened here? Mouse.left divided by get system metrics 0. Is it 1? Division by 0. APIs. Try that. Sorry, this one. Division by 0. That is strange. I think we declared the APIs wrong. I declared the APIs wrong. Hang on, let me just look it up. Well, I forgot by value. I'm silly. By value that as long. So and we need to do the same for that. It's easy to forget. Let's try that again. So 0.4, 0.94, 0.36. Okay, now we're going to do, instead of that, we're going to say, because this is a left, 960 over 0, and that should give us our multiplier. There we go. So now we have the multiplier. All we need to do is apply that to the cursor position. So we're going to do left equals, put this in its own clause, left equals mouse dot left times our multiplier there. So we're going to do that for the same with top. We'll set that to 1. You must remember to set that to 1, by the way, to get the y coordinate, and you must remember to get that to top. You must remember to set this to top and this to top. So now we're going to work on the final bit of the window dragging. That's all we're going to have time for in this tutorial, but window dragging should be the first thing that we should be doing anyway. So this is 8 test, which is perfect. So we have cancel here, over here, and we're going to use this to stop the dragging. And then for the dragging, we're going to move this. Now, later on, we're going to, for the header specifically, we're going to add 8 to this. Instead of looping through all the items, we're just going to modify the background. Sorry, the header. So we're just going to put that there, because let's not add it right now. And then we're going to, oh, okay, that's there. Right, so we're going to create a macro, first of all for starting the loop, one for stopping the loop, and one for the actual loop itself. So first of all, up here, we have to declare mvlp and xoff, yoff as boolean and single respectively. Now, mvlp is move loop, you can call it whatever you want, so long as you remember what it's called. Same for xoff and yoff. So the x offset and the y offset would basically be, when you click on here, you want everything when you're moving the window to be moved in relation to where you clicked it along here, rather than the whole thing just following your cursor position. Also, for some reason that's showing up like that. Anyway, so we're going to go back into the Visual Basic Editor, and we're going to create, we're going to create 3 subs. First of all, sub, what should we go, move window, and we're going to pass selector as shape as the parameter. Then we're going to do sub win loop for moving the window. We're also going to pass that as a parameter, and then in the last one, sub stop loop cell as shape. No, we don't need that, sorry, and that will stop it. So first of all, during our loop, we need to just loop the code basically. So we're going to do while mvlp, or echial, no, we don't want that, while, that we want wend for while ends, and then we want do events. And so first of all, let me just say something about do events. If you do not include do events, PowerPoint will crash. So save your work just in case. I'm probably going to have to say this a lot, but don't forget do events. Don't put it in an if statement either, so sometimes it won't run, because that's going to crash PowerPoint too. You need to keep it in the loop just before wend. In fact, probably don't indent it so that you know it's right next to wend. Basically, don't forget that. Otherwise, PowerPoint will crash. I've warned you. Right, so, also, my friend from PPT Games told me a really nice trick. What you can do is you can refresh the slide, not by just going to the current slide number, but you can also just update the text frame of one of these, and it renders just as fast without having to reset all the animation and stuff. So we're going to go to shapes, and I've made a shape called render up here. It just needs to be outside of the slide. Dot text frame dot text range dot text equals timer, and that will update it. So that just makes it run faster because you're updating the slide. Well, it renders faster, I mean. So then also during the loop, we want to actually move our shape. So with cell end with, we're going to hold cell, and we're going to say dot left equals cursor dot left minus x offset, and we're going to do the same with the y offset. Dot top equals dot cursor dot top minus y off. And, well, that's pretty much it. Now to stop loop, we need to set mvlp to false. To start the loop, we need to set mvlp to true. We also need to, with shapes, cancel. We're going to bring that to the front. Doesn't like that. Z order. Oh, why isn't it doing it? Sorry. Why am I doing that? There. MSO bring to front, and we're going to set it to visible. And after the loop has ended, so that's after the loop is finished, we're going to set that to false. We're probably not going to send it to back or anything, we're just going to get rid of it. And that's pretty much it. Then we want to call win loop, and we're going to return cell split cell dot name. We want to split it by this slash, and then that returns an array to which we can get the first thing out of it, which is 8 test we want. So we're going to use 0 because it's 0 based array, and we're going to put that in shapes, and that will return the shape of that. Whew. So, unless I've forgotten something, that should work. Let's wire it all up. So, let's insert this action, which will be stop loop, and we want to start the loop here. So we're going to set that to, where is it? Move window. Let's see if it works. We did not set the Y offset. That's the one thing I forgot to do. I keep doing things like that. So Y off equals cursor dot left minus dot left, and Y, no, that's X off, and that's Y off equals dot top minus dot top. Let's try again. Go back here, don't forget to save. Oh, I think I have a bit of a problem with my API code. So that seems to have... Let's go to the APIs. Cursor. Let's message box that. What? I've got... I forgot 540. I forgot to change that. That's silly. So don't just copy and paste the code. I can't just go back and redo the whole tutorial. So just remember that, not to forget the 540. And I've also made a mistake with the X and Y offsets. So maybe it's plus. No, it's certainly not that. This is interesting. Now with Windows systems, I've tried to make this tutorial about 7 times, and I keep getting unique errors. It's quite fun to see what the hell is going on. So let's try and work out the debugging process, because for those of you who are following this tutorial, you'll, first of all, if you're just doing exactly what I'm doing, you're going to run into the same mistakes as I did. So it's a good idea to talk you through how I'm debugging this. And also, you might run into problems of your own, which is pretty much inevitable with something like this. Considering that we also have to do resizing, which would be a hell of a thing to debug, and window management and minimization. It's gonna be quite a challenge. But let's see. First of all, I'm gonna see what last value for X and Y offset is. So I'm gonna go sub, and I'm going to message box X off. What's that? Well, I haven't set it to anything, so I'm just gonna cancel is visible. Set it like that. I'm gonna stop the loop. What is X off? 603. So the difference between the shape that I'm clicking and the cursor position is somehow 603. So this is a bit of a problem. Cursor dot left minus dot left. Ah, I see what I've done. I've put this inside the with statement for cancel rather than sell. So with sell dot there. Okay, that's what I've done. Oh, I'm kind of lucky. Feel lucky it wasn't something horrifically wrong. And there we go. We have smooth window dragging. So that's going to be it for the first part of this tutorial. Because I've got a roadmap for Windows 95, there are going to be other things before you get to the second part of the tutorial, and I'm actually going to start another tutorial, which will be the file system tutorial in the middle of it. But hopefully in about 2 weeks I'll continue this series, and I'm sorry I didn't manage to fit it into one video because it would take a whole day to upload something as long as, because this has got to about 40 minutes or 30 minutes, I can't remember. I'm kind of editing as I'm going along, so I may as well check. But I've got up to this stage, and this is quite early on in what we have to do. There's quite a lot more that we have to do, but we're getting somewhere. So I'll see you in the next tutorial. Bye bye.